Preseason overreactions. It's been 2 games, but what hills are we already ready to die on? What about this Celtics team are we ready to factually declare before the regular season even starts? Plus, a quick Raptors game recap, big man rotations and more coming up on First to the Floor.
Who's going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
The Brown drives, scoop layup off the glass. That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body.
What is going on? Ben Vallis here, ready to salivate on my mic here about these first 2 Celtics performances, just these first 2 preseason games. I'm ready to launch them into title contention, at least from an expectation standpoint. Wayne Spooney, hopefully going to be joining us a little bit later. I believe his kid woke up right before we were about to stream, so apologies for the delay there. In the meantime, Jake Eisenberg, also with us on this one. How are you, Jake? And if you're doing great, how much of that has got to do with how good the Celtics have looked so far?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great in part because of the Celtics, but part your preseason enthusiasm is bringing me up. This is my first time going through a preseason with you, and I love it. We're riding high. Let it fly.
Yeah. And I was trying to think, how many, what was our preseason record last year or the year before? I think the only notable one that everyone sadly remembers is 2019, where it was well, wait a second, we don't look very good here. What's going on? But other than that, preseason records don't matter. And yet here we are to overreact to everything that has happened so far in the preseason. Before we get to that, should we do a quick recap of preseason game 2, the Raptors game, which I would like to declare that the Celtics won. The Celtics essentially won that game. Yeah, I'm putting it down as a win for the boys in green in that they won the first 3 quarters. Then they went ahead and lost the 4th by 18 and OT by 6. I would like to personally blame and spotlight Justin Jackson for losing us that game. But let's just stick to the more enjoyable parts of the game there in the first 3 quarters there, Jake. What are your main takeaways from this one? Offensively, defensively, how did the Celtics get this done?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, like a lot of people, my league pass has kind of been in and out of working. And so the late 4th quarter, it started to kind of conk out. And so I missed the full collapse until watching it later. And so I had fully just embraced the win at that point, so I didn't have to go through the Justin Jackson. But yeah, people are ready to send him to China already, which is kind of disappointing because I kind of liked him as a 15th man. That obviously is not happening anymore. Coming into the game, I think for me it was how are they going to look against a Raptors team that has one of the best defenses in the league and a defense that's kind of designed to stop the Celtics. If you want to slow down 2 of the best 6'8" wings in the league, the entire Toronto Raptors team, they have 5 of the guys that you probably pick off a list to try and defend those guys. And I think the first quarter, there was a little adjustment period to realizing they weren't playing the Charlotte Hornets anymore. And they were playing, I think the Raptors Twitter are calling them Vision 6'9", because everybody on the team has to be around 6'9" and do a bunch of stuff. But the ball was popping again. Wide open threes. They couldn't knock any threes down today, but then yesterday. But the ball was popping again. Yeah, 31 assists yesterday, 14 I think in the first half, which is just an absurd rate. Great to see the identity still there. The Raptors had no answers on the other end either. The defensive identity of the team definitely intact after the second game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that first few minutes or so, it was pretty messy and a defensive slugfest. And a lot of that was the Celtics were settling for those outside shots. And in the past, I think a lot of fans have been well, if we're not hitting our threes, we're in trouble here because we can't really get to the rim reliably. And a few things, and we're going to get to these players individually in our overreactions shortly, but Jaylen Brown can certainly get fucking anywhere, including but not
Yes.
limited to the rim. Now it seems. Jason Tatum also much better at getting to the rim. John Corrales was harping on his podcast last night about how he's making like more efficient straight line drives to the
Yes.
bucket rather than trying to sort of weave his way there. And then enter Malcolm Brogdon with his averaging 9 assists so far in the preseason. If there's one guy who can get to the rim and finish or operate out of that position, it's Malcolm Brogdon. So rather than settling for threes and living or dying by those shots, suddenly there was this sort of concerted effort halfway through the first quarter. Let's just start getting to the rim and start making things happen. And then the Celtics just swarmed in on that strategy, and that was kind of it for the Raptors until it became the Justin Jackson show later in the day.
Once the seal was kind of broken, and I think that the Malcolm Brogdon thing, it's going to be a bit of a push and pull with Celtics fans wanting him to start and just play as many minutes as possible because he's really, 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 really good. And I'm going to keep harping on the stat that I saw in the offseason. It was like one of those graphs you see, and it's like all the different little faces on there, and it's like unassisted field goals at the rim per 75 possessions, and Malcolm Brogdon was kind of like in that group that was alone by themselves before you got the clump of everybody else next to them. And you really see that. He is so good at getting to the rim. He has these little crossovers. Spoonie talked about how he's not like the best passer in the league, but because he creates such powerful advantages when he gets to the rim, the passes are really easy for him to make, which is why he has averaging 9 assists in the first 2 games. I feel like he shifted the mentality because I was something I was noting was that while all the 3-point shots were really good, they were all perimeter shots early in the game, and they just weren't falling today. Mm-hmm. So I think that having someone else that kind of the go with Jaylen was a great point because he can get anywhere on the court, and he often is the one guy getting to the rim. Having another dude who's got an elite talent at getting to the rim and opening things up for everybody else. It was just a snowball effect, and it was just drive and kick. Beautiful.
What a seamless integration. Like, I think there was maybe a few minutes in his first game against the Hornets where it was like, what am I doing? Like, do I pass the ball? Do I look for my own shot? Yeah. And then all of that just melted away. And he's really slotted in very nicely as this new addition to the team. And seems like you said there, Jake, like he's got really nice chemistry with a few certain individuals, in particular, one Sam Hauser, currently shooting 69% from 3, who we'll get to in more detail in a little bit. I want to say a quick welcome to those in the chat here on the live stream and YouTube. There's a few of you in there now. Let us know your thoughts, please, on the Raptors game or the preseason so far. Do you got any hot takes that you want us to get to in a soon-to-be upcoming segment here later on the pod? But thank you all for joining us. Mention the assist, 31 in this game, Jake. 41 in the game prior. Sort of
so many.
I know, it's so many. And like, obviously that implies made baskets and ball movement, which are like the two sort of foundational pillars of any offense. Really great to see. I think we saw the inverse of that with turnovers. And I thought I wrote down the turnover numbers in my run sheet here. I clearly haven't. But suffice to say, shitload of turnovers in game 1.
23 in game 1. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And then just failed to write down the turnover count. I think it was 10. I think it was roughly 10 turnovers in game 2. So cleaning things up on that end. And this point in the season, like, you're looking for glaring issues to be addressed as quickly as possible. That's kind of what preseason is for. It's just an extension of practice and training camp. So for them to turn that around so quickly and against a quality defense like the Raptors, I think is incredible. Jake, actually, a couple more stats here for you before I throw back to you. So just to hammer home the fact that it was a win for the Celtics. So the Raptors starters all had a negative plus-minus. And OG Anunoby had a plus-minus of negative 27. Scotty Barnes had a negative 22. Like, these guys got shat on by our guys when the game was being taken seriously. If I could ever go back and amend like a final scoreline, it would be this one. If I had a basketball box score genie to grant me a wish, it would be this game. It's just unfair that they came back and won. It was really disappointing.
The Raptors and Celtics, like, you never want to drop a game to the Toronto Termites. But the Raptors are kind of similar to the Celtics, just worse. Like, they're switchable. They play tough. They play, they're good defense. They have a couple of elite wings. Like Siakam is kind of like JT light. I know OG Anunoby was the one great hope to turn into Jaylen Brown, and now that Scotty Barnes has kind of taken the mantle. I hear some crazy shit on Raptors Twitter. Like he's a mix of Giannis, Magic Johnson, and LeBron. And I love Scotty Barnes, but that's kind of outrageous. I will say in the first half where they had the 15 assists, they only shot 35% from three. So like it wasn't like they were shooting 50% from three, and that was why the assist numbers racked up. Like they were just moving the ball so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose I want to save the takes for the Jays and Sam Hauser. In fact, unless you've got anything else on the Raptors game, and it is preseason. I think we've covered most of the trends and sort of the standout features of the team so far. Have you got anything else on preseason at all, Jake, that you want to cover before we move on to our spicy hot take segment?
I'm just very encouraged. I think I'm pretty sure that the Charlotte Hornets are going to be the second worst team in the East after the Indiana Pacers. So like it was awesome they won by 40, but I was actually pretty excited to see how they matched up against a team that won 48 games last year, who improved in the offseason. Like, preseason, yada, yada, yada. The intensity of this game was really high in the first half. Like, both teams wanted to win this game. There's bad blood from the bubble the Eastern Conference semifinals with Nick Nurse. I saw a fucking screenshot of him standing on the court recently, because now where the refs are focusing in on the bench mob and giving technicals for being too close to the court. And as long as Nick Nurse isn't allowed to be on the court, I'm kind of okay with the rule. Yeah. But yeah,
he should be coaching remotely at this point, at least when it comes to the Celtics. Like, just get him out of there. He's bad news. Joe, with a very, very important, very serious question here. Do you think we'd have what it takes to hold off the Adelaide 36ers on the back of that performance, Jake?
Look, I mean, the way that the 36ers are shooting the ball so far this preseason, I'm not sure anybody has a chance of taking down the 36ers at this point.
I pulled up the statsnba.com website to prep for this podcast, and Adelaide 36ers is plastered all over that NBA website, which is insane, and a testament to just the great Aussie talent that the NBL is exhibiting on a regular basis. One more little note I had here on the Raptors game, that the Raptors had a lot of points in the paint, 70 in total versus Boston's 52. And on the Raptors Reddit page and on Raptors Twitter, they were actually talking about how they had a lot of success, they thought, going at Horford. I think that's secondary to they don't have a lot of great shooting on the court, and therefore if they are going to score, it's going to be in the paint. And then maybe add a little bit of Horford dialing it back due to it being preseason, due to him being 36 years old and knowing where his bread is buttered, and that not being in the preseason.
Yeah, I was thinking about this and how we haven't really spoken about Horford or seen much about Horford. And I think that kind of is just Horford in general. Than the average Al stuff. No news is good news about Horford until we get to the playoffs, pretty much. I would imagine he's in first or second gear right now. He's just moving the ball, taking open threes. And yeah, he's not worrying too much about trying to switch out onto Fred VanVleet and get too crazy.
Yeah.
As he should be.
We can almost paint Marcus Smart with that brush as well, where he's kind of a no news is good news player. The news on Marcus Smart is the egregious level of turnovers in everything prior to the second half of the Raptors game so far this preseason. If you talk about a guy in first or second gear, he might have the car in fucking reverse or neutral or something. doing doughies in the Engadine Macca's car park.
The off the backboard lob to kind of Derek and whoever else was running in the fast break when there was no, it was 2018 lob attempt vibes right there.
Yeah, but outside of those moments where he was taking things more seriously, just kind of naturally threaded into the natural state of things offensively and defensively. He's had a couple of notable defensive plays, but offensively, he hasn't really stood out. And I mean that in the best way possible, because there have been times as longtime Celtics fans, we know Marcus Smart can stand out or stick out like a sore thumb. He hasn't been doing that despite, his lackadaisical point guard styles with the turnovers and strange assist attempts at times. So that's been really good to see. Jake, I think.
Yeah. I was
Sorry,
going to say, like, he had the lowest field goal attempts out of, like, all of the main guys. Jalen, Jason, Horford, Derek, Brogdon, Hauser, Grant. He took 4 attempts, and that's exactly what you want. And 3 of them were wide open threes. So, perfect.
Yeah, and yet across the 2 games has by far the highest single game or dual game plus minus,
Yeah.
so plus 16. Which is
Not
great.
worried about Marcus.
No, not at all. All right. Preseason overreactions. That's going to be the meat of this podcast, where a lot of hyperbole, which is to be expected from this podcast. We're going to talk about overreactions to what we've seen so far in the preseason. I'm going to throw one out there, Jake, and maybe we can just go back and forth here. This is a great overreaction to start with. Jaylen Brown looks like 1991 Michael Jordan. He's been 17 for 25 from the field so far, 68%. So close, Jaylen Brown. And just the moves he's been busting out. I suppose the biggest criticism coming out of the playoffs was Jaylen Brown dribbling into traffic and just kind of losing control of the ball, whether it be being stripped or trying to throw out a pass, trying to throw the ball away and throwing it out of bounds or directly to the opposition. And again, these overreactions. It's 2 preseason games, but his control and his decisiveness and his decision making, and then just the flair on top of that, like the superstar NBA Jam flair packaged all together, is why I'm throwing out the very unserious Michael Jordan comparison here. But he looks incredible. He looks buff. He looks awesome.
He looks huge, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you got on Jaylen Brown?
So my girlfriend Lucy, she huge Jaylen Brown fan. I caught her watching Jaylen's GQ interview last night before I had even seen it. So, and I had been telling her how jacked Jaylen had looked, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Jaylen's always jacked." And I'm like, "No, he's come in serious shape," and I'm convinced that like the wrist really hampered his ability to get better last year, and I think was a reason why the handle kind of regressed a little bit. Completely healthy coming off the finals. This guy needs no extra motivation to get better. And, there's the Kevin Durant trade rumors. There's the losing in the finals. There's the contract year, the ability to make All-NBA and make like a $250 million contract. Like, for a guy that doesn't need extra motivation, who lives with a chip on his shoulder, to get chip upon chip upon chip in the offseason, I think is quite obviously had an impact. Like, he looks incredible shape. He looks a little more explosive to me as well. I think even he had the hamstring last year. There was a few moments last year where he's trying to dunk on people. He was just missing like 1 to 2 inches of lift. And that first play in the Hornets game where he cooks LaMelo and just casually throws down a tomahawk with the right hand. It's quite obvious. My favorite play of the game yesterday was, we're talking about Jaylen Brown, Landon Lakes. Thanks for stopping by, my friend. And there was a play where Tatum kind of threw him a hot potato with 5 seconds left. I'm forgetting who he cooked, but he went between the legs, deep 2, Kobe fadeaway, splash, doesn't even touch the rim. Like,
Yeah,
he's
Gary
just
Trent.
Gary
He was
Trent,
like an
yeah,
elite
solid defender.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's cooking. He still can't shoot free throws, despite apparently working on them. He missed three in a row yesterday. That's just going to be part of the Jaylen experience for the rest of his career, I think. But yeah, I'm 1991 MJ maybe a little strong, but like peak T-Mac is maybe a little light. So who knows?
The only reason I went with 91 is because that's like still pre-championship, like beginning of the 1991 season. Sounds like we're talking about Hauser. Thank you, Landon. We are going to get to Hauser in a second.
I was going to say, yeah.
But yeah, I think that one of the actual highlights of the game on the NBC Boston broadcast was that Tatum Brown pick and roll. They only ran it to completion in, I think, 1 possession, but Brown as the ball handler, Tatum off the ball, and I think you've got some clips, Jake, that we'll get to shortly for Tatum. Yeah. I don't know if that's involved. But such a sexy play for Celtics fans and like Jay's connoisseurs, like to see these guys run that kind of connection out of the pick and roll, and to see of all people, Jaylen Brown being the playmaker there is incredible. On top of that, just sharing my screen here, scrolling through Celtics Reddit. Shout out to Celtics.
Here we go.
Reddit. We still love you guys. Jared Weiss on the KD trade rumors and Jalen's future in Boston. I think Jalen understood why this was happening. I'm not getting the impression he's playing out his deal and then looking to go elsewhere. I think he's in a pretty good spot with the organization, all things considered, which is music to our ears. If we thought that Jaylen Brown, Tatum pick and roll was good, hearing that there's maybe a little bit of longevity considered in terms of his tenure as a Boston Celtic is what helps me sleep at night. Landon Lakes chiming in there. Any thoughts on that before we move on from Jaylen Brown, Jake? Are you taking that with a grain of salt, or does that sort of help inflate your confidence about where he's going to be in the future?
It's so hard to know with any of these guys, but especially Jalen. I know we had the second year in a row we had the Jays puff piece on NBC, interviewed by Chris Forsberg, again doing an excellent job. So again, puff piece. That's what it is. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But like, there's nothing pointing to him wanting to leave outside of like speculation. Everything that he says and does has pointed to the opposite of that. And he talks about wanting to win, and even in that GQ interview, what was that interview yesterday? But like, I could leave. I could average 25 to 30 on another situation, but I want to win. I want to stay here. Like. Yeah, take it with a grain of salt, but I have it at like 80% plus that he re-signs with the Celtics until we get any other new information that points the other direction.
Yeah, and like as long as we can max him, which we can, and then some, as far as what he'd earn elsewhere, what better situation is there? I mean, I suppose the argument's been made, so we don't have to remake it, that like he could have more of the spotlight solely on him if he went elsewhere, but there's such an emphasis on winning as far as like just how that punctuates your overall career trajectory, and just like how you're remembered legacy-wise, and going somewhere like the Kings or the Pacers or somewhere who might have cap space next year just doesn't make sense. This is the best situation.
That's the thing. The teams that do have cap space aren't going to be winners. Like being from Atlanta, that's a team that I think he probably shed defenders, not pathogens. Yeah, perfect. He Atlanta's probably the one team that I think he probably wants to play for at some point in his career. They're not going to have cap space, so like if he did want to leave, it would have to be a sign and trade. Not someone we would want to lose, but if you're getting back, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, and stuff. Like, that's a lot better than losing Jalen for nothing. That's really the only team, like from knowing Jalen as best we can, that I think he would want to go to. I just don't see him wanting to go to the Magic, unless they take a massive leap this year. But even then, he's not. Is he going to be the number one guy on a team with Paolo? I don't know.
A healthy Jonathan Isaac. Who's to say?
Who's to say?
Do you want to kick off our second preseason overreaction?
Of course. It's time for house money. Sam Hauser is the 2023 All-Star Weekend 3-point champion. This does not feel like an overreaction relative to the 91 MJ comparison.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, he's shooting 69% on the preseason. I see any reason why that would go down across the regular season at this point. He's only going to be continuing to get wide open looks. How can you not be insanely hyped about what Sam Hauser's giving you? Like, this is what the Heat found in Duncan Robinson. Like, without Duncan Robinson, the Heat don't make it anywhere near the finals in the bubble. Like, he was such an incredible find. Like, finding dudes in the late first and second round that become legitimate top 8, top 9 rotation players have such insane impacts. Like, the Heat are dining off like the half their roster being these guys. It's actually kind of insane to think about if they weren't hitting on these lottery tickets, how screwed they would be. But I mean, like, Sam Hauser, man. I mean, he could probably squeak in as an all-star or an injury replacement at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's preseason overreactions. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So don't shut us down for that take. I feel like we've been due for this kind of acquisition as a team for a while. One of the most frustrating elements of being a Celtics fan, and I guess just saying this goes to show how good we've had it lately is seeing other teams find diamonds in the rough, namely the Miami Heat, but there are other teams who are good at it as well. The Spurs, maybe another one. With
Raptors,
Raptors. Like we've been due, and then we've had certain picks, first round picks, fail. Aaron Nesmith actually looked pretty good for the Pacers yesterday, and like this shooter to space the floor. Even if they get no shots, even if the NBA gets wise to the Hauser effect early on and they have to stick to him, the amount of space that opens up, like that player archetype, Hauser or just anyone that we've attempted to draft who could, in theory, shoot, what that opens up for the other guys on our team, the actual real all-star level players, the Jays essentially, is so huge. And then add to that, Hauser's had some incredible 2-point shot conversions as well. He had that and one. Also, Joe Mazzulla's debut coaching challenge, which was successful. The and one play there for Sam Hauser. He's had some really nice off-ball cuts. And then we talked about like not noticing Horford and not noticing Smart and how that's a good thing. Not really noticing Hauser on the defensive end is also a supremely underrated fact. And I think a lot of us have noticed because we've been watching intently, like, can he hold up on that side of the floor? Carl with the I have to feature Carl's comment here. Good thing Wayne Spooney wasn't here to hear you say that.
I know.
Absolutely. He is hurting
Blasphemy.
right now. And like I don't want to go too far behind the curtain here, but that is actually why Wayne Spooney hasn't joined this podcast. He's quietly weeping in the shower, I believe. But hopefully he can join us a little bit later. But Sam Hauser, the effect is clear. I think at this stage, Jake, really looking forward to seeing what he looks like in the regular season. Like, will the moment be too big for him, particularly in that opening game against the Sixers, which is like that's a feature game. That's a big stage. Do you think he's going to be able to hold up in situations like that?
That's the question.
Yes.
Like Nesmith, as you mentioned, was 2 for 5 from 3 yesterday, 40% from 3. Preseason hero, Aaron Nesmith. Granted, 40% is not 69% on like bigger volume in 2 games. But preseason, summer league, college, up in Maine, these are far less pressurized situations than opening night against the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, that is a completely different kettle of fish. And we're not going to know until he's knocking down threes. And like, how many, I feel like it's happened, Nesmith, Romeo, Carson Edwards, like we're just on the edge of our seat on pins and needles, just like praying to the gods that the threes start to go in. Nesmith was every shot that went up, you're just like, I will sacrifice everything I own for this first three pointer to go in. Because if it doesn't go in, then he's cooked for the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. We're not going to know until that first one. I think the matchup for him is pretty solid in the opening game. And I know Brogdon's on our overreactions list as well. But he's just going to be freaking wide open on a lot of these. And if he's not, then people are just going to be getting to the rim.
Yeah, I'm going to be intently watching to see at what point in the game he gets inserted in game one. Like, will Joe Mazzulla's confidence in Sam Hauser and the team's confidence in Sam Hauser be maintained in a game on that stage?
Yeah, because Harden, I can see having a bit of a field day with pulling Hauser out into an island. So, so that's definitely something to watch as well.
Well, Hauser just got to pull him out onto his own super island on the other end, right?
That's right. Get him run around some screens, get him tired. Let's go.
The next preseason overreaction, this might be the least overreaction on the show. Grant Williams is now a complete NBA player, and he's reached that stage of completion at one specific moment in the last game, which is when he caught the ball running to the wing in transition, put up a hezzy shot fake, and then drove to the basket. Like, if he's doing that, and then he's now just in general added this sort of like fake and drive into closeout component to his game on top of the threes, which he's hitting at a very high clip so far in the preseason. Considering his role, is he not fully complete in that role now? Is he not exactly what many NBA teams need at this stage? Dude,
they need to sign this dude's extension today. Every single game.
Money.
No. Wick's got it. Wick, all right, open up the pocketbook.
Okay.
Like every game, the price of Grant's contract is going up. Like, I I was just about to finish reading the interview that Jared Weiss had on Hoops Hype, and I know they get to the Grant Williams extension. But I am surprised that it hasn't gotten done yet. Probably because Grant knows that the price is going up every single day, and in free agency, he's probably going to get a pretty serious contract. He's the perfect role player. Like he was already perfect as he was through the playoff run. That was just the piece to round out him as like the perfect guy in that role. Was people now, because when he started hitting all those shots earlier in the season, people still weren't defending him like he was a 40% 3-point shooter. Then when the playoffs rolled around, the Bucks left him open and he knocked down 8 threes in a game 7. And the Heat and the Warriors were like, that's a really fucking good shot for you guys. We're not going to just be giving you like wide open threes to a really good shooter. And that limited what he was able to do impact wise on the court. And the next step of that evolution appears to be exactly what he worked on. He also clearly has lost a little bit more weight, because I know that was part of his process, just like slowly getting slimmer but maintaining strength and increasing athleticism. And he's been in the sun. That dude is looking trim, tan, and just cooking dudes off the dribble. We've got spin moves plus little handoffs to Vonleh. We've got alley-oops running the pick and roll to Kabengele. Like Hezzy's hitting the layups. I'm just waiting for the first time he dunks on someone. I think that's going to be kind of the culmination of the Grant Williams experience. And then he's still switching 1 through 5. Like the fact that he is kind of your emergency at the 5, but he's, that's an elite 5-out option to have. So yes, complete player. Yeah, pretty much, man. As far as elite role players go.
In his role, yeah. Obviously, it'd be nice if he was a little bit taller, maybe a little bit quicker.
Right.
But as far as like, we drafted him a couple of years ago. What is this guy's ceiling? I feel like he's like basically hit the ceiling, if not blasted through it. I think Spoonie talked about it on the last podcast, that he had a bit more of a post game at Tennessee. We haven't seen a lot of that. Again, it's preseason. We can dismiss things on this podcast as being, it's preseason or whatever. And also we can look at things and prop them up and overreact.
That's right.
Because it's preseason. That's what we have the right to do as owners of this podcast. Landon Lakes with an interesting comment. I think the Celtics should wait until next year to extend Grant in the very off chance that we package him, keep all options open, which is interesting. On one hand, if you're looking at it objectively, he's scintillating enough from an opposing NBA franchise's perspective that he could be considered as like a valuable piece in like a quote unquote blockbuster trade. But then it comes down to like how complimentary is him to our team compared to anyone else that we could get in return. How friendly would that extension be? And then if you are going to trade him, what like size of change do you need? What denomination of contract size do you need? Do you want what he's currently on, or do you want to extend him to like 15, 17 per year, which is kind of a more tradable salary range, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think, in order to kind of do what Landon's saying here, is it would be kind of a sign and trade situation where like in the off season when we haven't signed him yet, it's going to be, we're signing him to that 20 mil per year and we're bringing back someone else, after we've included another pick, maybe Peyton Pritchard as well. And it's going to be, a third star or fourth star, depending on how you feel about Rob Williams. I think he's going to have more value to you, and I think and this is why they got to get I personally think they got to get the contract done. Like if you can have someone in that 20 million and under range, all these contracts are going to be cheap as hell once the new TV deal comes in a couple of years. Yeah. So like even if you have to overpay for Grant a little bit, it's going to look really, and the cap's going up every year. Like it came in over the expected amount it was supposed to go up this year. These deals are just getting, like Jalen's on like such a ridiculously cheap deal at this point. I'm definitely anti trading Grant at this point. Just I think how much he brings to the table. He's a proven playoff guy already, and that was really his first big step as a player, and I would expect him to incrementally continue to improve over the next couple of years. And everybody likes making fun of Grant. He seems to be like very core to the banter of the group. Even I saw some tweet about Blake Griffin's already roasting Grant. Like you gotta, key part of every friendship group. It's like Spoonie. You know, we're always roasting Spoonie behind the scenes. See, he's late again, as per usual.
You can't rewind this.
And
it's all good. We're safe.
yeah, I think vibes, impact on the court. I'm pretty anti getting rid of Grant at this point. Even, obviously, never say never if the right deal comes along, of course. But yeah.
Yeah. Consummate vibesman. Very much like a recent acquisition by the Celtics, who we're going to get to a little bit later. Jake, do you want to take the lead on the Tatum overreaction segment? Because I believe you've got at least a clip or two that you want to run us through here.
Yeah, well, so we touched on it on the last podcast. The only one of the only negative things we took away from last game is Tatum going to get off to the slow start that we saw last year? At least shooting the ball. I think last year it was shooting the ball. It was the team defense. It was the movement of the offense. All of those things were happening at the same time, and they were all kind of focused on Tatum. But the shooting appears to not be there still. But it does not appear to matter right now because he's literally doing everything else, whether it's playmaking. His defense is going to continue to be underrated for his entire career because of how good he is on offense, and that's just how it works. Like, if you're a defense-only player, that's going to be overrated. Like, Matisse Thybulle, I think, is one of the most overrated defenders in the league because he can't do anything else. Like, Tatum's a much better wing defender than someone like that, but he's just not going to get the credit for it. So he's doing the elite defense, the playmaking, and something that I've noticed has been his off-ball contributions, cutting off ball. They're getting him in different actions. I know they did that last year. I'm going to play a little clip here. We should be able to talk over it. You can still hear me, Ben?
I hear you.
Yep, see, look at that. Perfect cut, kick to Smart. And Derek White was the screener on that one as well, who's also the screener here. Derek White screens both Oubre and LaMelo pretty much here. One of the only threes Tatum actually hits.
Single
But
double
getting
drag
him-
screen.
Single double scratch string. Genius. Getting him in these perfect spots. Brogdon, looking for him. This is just a beautiful. And this is on OG Anunoby and Precious Achua. And then every Celtics favorite play, the Jays, screen and roll. Scotty Barnes, no chance. Tomahawk, right? Like, and that was two plays from each of the last two games. I'm not sure if they're doing it more. It feels like to me that there's a focus from the rest of the team to get Jason Tatum easy looks, whether it's wide open threes on screens, cutting to the rim. He just has so much gravity that, like that first play, finding Smart wide open. And if you just get him those easy looks, the threes will start to fall. I felt like last year that he was forcing it a bit, I think, and some of the little things weren't getting done. But now that this team's identity seems to be quite set in stone, it's like when you're playing 2K and you got a My Create player, every pass adds to kind of like your momentum. Mm-hmm. That's once he gets in the flow of the game, the Boston crowd, all that stuff's going to take care of itself. And I think the slump will hopefully end sooner than like January this time round. But yeah, I really like what he's doing off ball at the moment.
Yeah, and we talked about Al Horford potentially being in like vacation mode still and playing in like first or second gear. Probably safe to say that Tatum is also taking that approach. And, this time, at this point, knowing him as an NBA player for this long, we sort of had the benefit of going, okay, like, yes, it would have been nice if he came out shooting hot to begin with, but like we know this is how it goes. And we certainly know how it ends, which is much more important that latter part of the season. I've got a play that I wanted to share as well. You talked about his sort of off-ball movement and just while playing in that first or second gear, not playing, at full force, it's still just a beautiful thing to watch him sort of fit perfectly into the seams of the offense and the defense. I want to talk about his passing and his reads very quickly. So if I can bring up this clip very quickly, they run a play to sort of get Tatum open, and it doesn't really achieve anything. We're not really generating a good shot out of this. And here we see essentially a double team come over to Jason Tatum. He finds Smart open on the wing, Smart with the extra swing pass over to Jason Tatum. But he was so quick to react to not only the double team, but who was open as a result of the double team. And yes, that is an extension of what he was doing last year. Like, this isn't a new development, but considering that he's just sort of half-assing it and is just so a second nature, able to make that read and set up that bucket for Jaylen Brown, who in his own right is shooting incredibly. That's just so fun to watch. Like, yes, like Space Jam, NBA Jam dunks and Zions and all that stuff are like obviously like, very entertaining, very social media friendly. Follow us on TikTok, First on the Floor 18. But like that kind of sexy basketball in that kind of team dynamic. And then I suppose leaking into that is like my personal anxiety of the coaching situation and Ime Udoka not being there, and like, are these guys all on the same page? Like the answer is clearly yes. So the hot take there, to circle back on it, is that Tatum cannot shoot, but that does not matter. It really doesn't.
It really doesn't, I don't think, early especially. Man, the playmaking has just come so far. I know that there was some pushback when, you know, the NBA media finally accepted that Jason Tatum had become like a really, really good playmaker, where, you know, a lot of Celtics fans saw it really emerge in the bubble when, you know, Hayward went down and Kemba was on one knee, and you know, Tatum averaged 5+ assists for the entire playoff run. That was where it really emerged. But man, the fact that it's become this second nature to him, he literally just, he knows exactly what's coming. He's going to post. He really understands how much gravity he has now. He knows he's going to be a player. One dribble, bang, one hand pass to Smart, who makes the right read. You know, maybe a year ago, Smart takes that three, but he knows who's in the corner is downtown Jaylen Brown. And it's just beautiful, beautiful. And the fact that it's second nature in the preseason versus we had to wait until January, February for this offense to really get humming, if everybody understand. It's just accepting and understanding and building the trust, dare I say the love and trust with the teammates to understand that, like, this is the best option. The ball's going to come back to you. You're going to get wide open looks, and winning cures all things, basically. It's just
Absolutely.
top to bottom beautiful.
And like, by God, did we need this as fans? You know, like with the September that we've had, going back to the Gallo injury and the Rob surgery and everything that sort of happened, and obviously the Udoka situation, you know, I'll say a couple of wins because, like I say off the top here, like we're considering this Raptors game a win, essentially. The important part of the game was won. Like that is just so good for the vibes and the overall outlook. I'm sure that permeates within the organization as well. So important and so just necessary as far as my own mental health. Let's rush through these last couple of hot takes very quickly. The next one we've got, Malcolm Brogdon guarantees a second quarter run that causes, you know, unmake-upable levels of separation for the opposition, unless the opposition is going up against Justin Jackson, unfortunately, like we saw yesterday. Agree, disagree? You know, want to extend that take at all, Jake?
Yeah, look, I mean, the memory, this was happening in the second half of last year, and the memory of when the Celtics went into Denver and it was tight, and then they just like breathed fire all over the Nuggets, like with Peyton Pritchard threes. This is only going to another level this year. Malcolm Brogdon as your dude off the bench running the second unit. I think it was, you know, Marcus and then Hauser, Pritchard, and I think it was either Grant. I think it was Grant. Like, he could lead the league in assists as a sixth man. That's how insane the second quarters have looked right now. Like, a second unit of Brogdon surrounded by Hauser, Pritchard, Grant, and pick a non-shooter. It doesn't matter. Like, the level of spacing that's going to be around him is kind of absurd. 9 assists in 2 games, 18 assists in 47 minutes. Kind of absurd. And again, they only shot 35% from 3 yesterday. Like, it wasn't like they were scorching hot like the game in Charlotte. He generates such easy looks. Like, Hauser was just, there was no defender in sight in a couple of these ones. We'll see how much that changes as teams adjust. But again, if they're going to, you know, collapse on or hug towards Hauser, that just means easier looks for Brogdon.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Carl Saff has chimed in here. Is overreaction to a duo allowed? Because I think the second unit combo of Brogdon and Hauser is going to be deadly against other benches, just like you just touched on there, Jake. And then Spoonie chiming in with Brogdon kicking to essentially any good shooter who can space the floor is cheating. Just the dual effect of opening the driving lanes up for Brogdon, and or otherwise, if the defense collapses, opening up the shooting pockets for those guys.
Carl, that's a great point. I think we're gonna have to workshop a nickname if the Brogdon Hauser duo starts to eventuate, the first thing that comes to mind is Hogden. But that's just a simple combination of names. We'll get in the lab and start to think of something good.
Like it's an invitation that like come to Malcolm Brogdon's house party, spelled Hauser, something like that. There's something there. There's something there. We have to get on Photoshop and mock that up.
Brogdon extended the VIP invitation to the house party.
Really interesting question from Oz Celtics fan here. Shout out to Justin, who says, when did we last have a varied and competent second unit, or such a varied and competent second unit? The Pierce and KG era. Spoody says the disappointing 2019 team had a loaded bench, which I think is probably fair. But going back, I mean, because if you look back beyond that, like to bridge the gap between 2019 and like the KG Pierce era, you could argue that many of those starting lineups were not varied and competent, you know? So when was the bench varied and competent? Like, was it when we had, I'm drawing a blank here, Fongo's, like, a original love interest, Jarebko? Like, was Jarebko a good, like, seventh man for a while there?
Yeah, like, I think Brad kind of engineered some relatively competent second units, but, like, I think the point, the J era in general, that one year was supposed to have a great bench, Terry, Mook, the list goes on. But the difference here is that people are bought into the ball movement and the team identity. Ogden Wild, that's beautiful. There we go. See, this is a team collaborative effort. This is perfect.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. This is what we want.
Everyone in the chat. This is what it's all about. Like having the ball movement, like, Jalen and Jason didn't have the playmaking in them back in 2019, and it's all part of the same chemistry here. But like there hasn't been a J in the second unit, I've noticed, in the first two games, like, which is interesting. I'm sure that they're going to play around with that, but that's how good the second unit has looked without a Tatum or a Jalen out there at the same time. So these bench units, like, we survived Derek White and Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum, and now it's Jalen and Brogdon and Hauser and just raining threes down upon you while Grant shutting down whoever your best wing is. It's just like, second unit looks good.
Yeah, they look great. And just to take the pressure off the Jays there long term. And all of this, to segue, is happening without Rob Williams, the Time Lord, on the floor. And Al Horford, therefore, is playing solely the center spot, maybe like the sole center on the team, on the roster currently.
Right now,
has had some flashes, but Cabangelli's a lot of fun. And, Spoody in our chat yesterday was talking about the vertical spacing element that Cabangelli adds. But, I don't think he's going to play 12 minutes in game one against the Sixers, for example. He might not even see the floor or even suit up at all. So Horford is really like our sole guy at the moment, someone that we also talked about going a little soft to begin the preseason. One thing that I noticed about Horford, and I tried to find stats to back this up, so you'll have to forgive me, it's based on my own sort of eye test and assumptions at the moment. Horford seems to be setting more picks in transitions that we are scoring out of quite successfully. And yes, you could scratch that off as in game one as the Hornets are not a competent defense, but they did it quite well and quite successfully. There were two instances. One I've got a clip of here to show you where the Celtics did that against the Raptors. So here we've got Tatum bringing the ball up, which is another emerging trend. He's bringing the ball up much more frequently, and we see that Horford's going to come and set this pick immediately in transition before the Raptors defense is set. And Tatum still ends up sort of facing a crowd of three there, but does a really good job of spinning around the primary defender and getting to the bucket. I believe there was another very similar action with Horford and Marcus Smart earlier in the game. That's not an action that I am very familiar with, Jake, and I wonder if that's something that we're going to see throughout the season, and whether or not that's limited to Horford. As a person of such high basketball IQ, is that action limited to him, or are we going to see Rob and even Luke Cornett pull that off?
Yeah, it's so hard to know because we're not there, obviously. But how much of this is system designed? I know how amazing would it be? Because how much of this is designed, and how much of this is just the whole team is insanely high IQ now? Like Derek White is just naturally setting screens to spring Tatum open. Horford's doing it. Is that because Horford's seen Derek White do it twice in game one, and on film he's been like, oh, that's a really cool thing that you've been doing. I'm going to start doing more of that as well. Like, it's hard to say. Maybe Mazulla's already making his imprint on the team. Regardless of where it's coming from, it's great. Like getting. I love the appears. Seems to be getting a concerted effort to Tatum to get in really advantageous spots, and Jalen as well. It's beautiful.
Is Horford at the top of your injury anxiety list for this season, especially now while we've got no one backing him up, or is Brogdon taking the top spot?
I guess as far as like likelihood, like Tatum's at the top of the list. Like if Tatum went down, I might have to go into a dark room for a long, long time. But he doesn't get injured, so don't have to worry about that. Like if Horford goes down, it's kind of granted, we are missing the Green Hornet currently. Our elite backup big man right now. But yeah, I think there's only one good big man on the team right now. So if Horford went down, I think it would be a bit of an issue. But yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? I know you have high injury anxiety just in general.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. Feel seen. I mean, obviously the Jays, but Malcolm Brogdon has shown and demonstrated his importance to the team and sort of functionally what he contributes. But we also are quite deep at the guard position. Thank you for reminding me, we've got an ad read that we need to get to, Jake.
Yes.
We're one Al Horford ankle roll away from Cabangeli playing like 25 minutes a game in the regular season as things currently stand, and that is extremely concerning. So Al Horford, very much okay with him only playing in first gear and sort of sticking to that way of things up until halfway through the regular season, unless we really need him to kick it up a gear. Jake, we do have an ad read to get to. I believe you've got some copy that you want to read for us.
Yes, we have a very important message to read. Welcome to Fresh Ball Fall. It's the season of pumpkin spice and making sure your crotch looks nice. That means sipping cider in a fall breeze and using Manscaped product to trim your balls with ease. That's right, today's show is brought to you by Manscaped, a company here to make sure that your foliage isn't the only thing shedding its excess leaves. Heck, even Mother Nature knows it's time to lose the excess clutter for fall. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code CRPOD. We're going to get that updated, don't you worry. Whether you're brand new or already with us at Manscaped, you could use the crown jewel of care for your family jewels, the Platinum Package 4.0. With this glorious package, you can align your entire hygiene routine all in one swoop. Inside the 10-part Platinum Package is everything you know and love about the Performance Plus package, some shower goodies included to elevate your grooming game to platinum. The Lawnmower 4.0, I personally have the 3.0, which I love, need to upgrade. The 4.0 body trimmer and weed whacker nose and ear hair trimmer feature. Proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect your delicate parts and holes, which I can say are incredible bits of technology. Both are waterproof, so you can keep scaping as the weather's changing. In addition to shaving, you can now completely upgrade your shower routine with the Ultra Premium Body Wash and Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner. You'll have your skin and hair feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. Don't forget to apply the aluminium-free Ultra Premium Deodorant. And don't worry, it's not pumpkin spice. It's a cologne quality fragrance. I wouldn't mind some pumpkin spice. It's just, for the odd occasion. But we couldn't save a signature scent for our pits. Use Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner to make sure your go-to smell is top shelf and not sweaty balls. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to the Premium Package, Platinum Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxes and Shed Travel Bag, both specifically made to hold your goodies. Get the Platinum Package this fall. These products are guaranteed to hit your dangly bits. And even in Australia, it's not fall, but it's muggy. The swamp ass is in full effect. So use the code CRPOD to get your 20% off your manscaped.com products.
It's on the rag.
It's tough. There we go.
Great first ad read there, Jake. Well done. Use that code CRPOD. We are going to get it updated to something along the lines of first to the floor as soon as they respond to my request to do so. And Jake, no need to invest in the 4.0. I got an email confirmation from them last week that they're sending you out your own performance package. So we expect a fully groomed Jake on the podcast as soon as next week.
My fiance is going to be stoked to hear that as well.
Absolutely. It's kept my marriage alive single-handedly. So it's very much recommended. Now, before we wrap up, Blake Griffin is our final preseason hot take, and the hot take there is that he is the best bench presence in the entire league. As I allow myself back into the chat here, there we go. Jake, am I right? Am I wrong? Is Blake Griffin the ultimate bench presence in the league?
Brad Stevens is playing chess, not checkers, once again. The Brogdon trade was a smashing success, but we did lose one very key piece, and that was Malik Fitz, bench mob legend. And Blake Griffin has come in and absolutely nailing the bench mob situation. Every time it cuts to Blake Griffin, we're seeing him laughing, making fun of Grant Williams, as I alluded to earlier. I think he's been a great influence on the bench so far. He's a stand-up comedian. There's the whole Lana Rhodes kid controversy surrounding him right now, which I'm sure the team is having a fun time with as well. It's good times. Yeah, can you all hear Ben? Let me know if you can't hear Ben.
Sweet. Cool. I was off screen for
Thanks,
a little
Carl.
bit. Sounds like my voice was still coming through there, which is important for the listeners of the audio podcast. We did lose a few members of the chat there during that ad read, so that's interesting. Not Manscaped fans. Their loss. I do have a clip here for Blake Griffin, and then we're going to wrap up with a couple of things.
Yes.
So, Cavangeli, they called a timeout after he appeared to maybe knock the ball out of bounds. Blake Griffin, dude, you've knocked the ball out. It's not a timeout. Get back there. Cavangeli freaks out. He's like, "No, dude, I'm just fucking with you." And then, like, the intensity in Cavangeli's eyes, like, having been through that moment. It's his second time on an NBA floor in a while. Like, he's had cups of tea with other teams. Obviously, he's just, like, at a point in his career where he's just so focused, so much trying to get, like, that proper NBA contract. And Blake Griffin's just out there, like, busting his balls. His Manscaped balls, I may add.
I love it, yeah.
Just good vibes. And, like, Tatum is, like,
man.
so into it. And, like, Tatum probably at one point in his life was a Blake Griffin fan, I imagine.
Oh, dude,
back in, like,
of course.
2011 when he's jumping over cars and shit. So it's just funny how things come full circle like that.
I think Blake has a lot of respect and cachet around the league still. Like, he's not that far removed from his dunking on everyone days and like 2 to 3 years removed from being on third team All NBA. Like, a lot of these guys in the league have been posterized or cooked by Blake Griffin at one time or another. And he runs in those elite circles. Like, people have that respect for him. 6-time All-Star, MVP candidate, all sorts of things like that. It's a great signing from a Vibes point of view. I'm probably a little higher on it than most, but I'm typically a little higher on all Celtics moves until they prove me otherwise. I think the fact that he can play the 4 and the 5, just do a little bit of everything. I'm hopefully we see him in the next. I'm guessing we'll see him in the next preseason game tomorrow against Charlotte.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, he in his interview talked about really wanting to get on the floor before the regular season. As fans, obviously, we'd love to see it. Hopefully, we get like a spicy dunk, right? Like I don't know,
yes.
It's been a rough month. We
Just a little one,
something
yeah.
like that. That'd be nice. Maybe a nice alley-oop from Smart there. Now, look, we're at risk. I mean, we're going to do it. We're going to run over the sort of forbidden 1 hour
good question
mark
here,
Jake. So, sorry, go ahead.
Does anyone have? Do you have anything off the top of your head from Nicholas here? Who will be the next aging vet that's going to come to Boston to get a ring?
Does Gallinari count? He'll be back next year if we don't trade him.
He'll be back. Yeah, I mean Melo. I know he'll be out in the wind. That's what's cool. It does seem like Boston's like pretty much at the top of the pecking order, at least. Yeah, of those vets, looking to chase a ring. So
yeah,
it's good news.
I'd love to know what everyone in the chat sort of thinks. Spoonie says IT. I think we're at a point now where like that could be harmless, maybe to the culture. Haslam would be, if we could get Haslam on our bench and then beat the Heat
That'd be
in the
hilarious.
finals, there would be no more satisfying outcome. No IT, says Landon Lakes. Yeah, I mean, I think IT would be like the most fun, right, for fans who've been fans of the team for longer than a few years. Because
Yeah.
we're talking about guys who, and this includes Blake Griffin, if all things go well, and we've said this on the podcast before, that they're not really expected to have much of an impact on the team. It's more of a break glass in case of emergency bench piece.
Yeah.
So Conley gets bought out.
Oh,
Yeah.
that would be
That's
wild.
interesting. And then, like, would he even sign here? Because
Yeah, where do
wouldn't be
we?
able to
Like, that's the thing
guarantee
with
much of a
IT.
role for him.
Yeah, like IT, like, Pritchard's better than IT at this point. Like, and he can't get on the court. Conley would
But
be insane good insurance for like Brogdon.
Yeah, I mean, IT is just going to take any contract offer he gets at this point in his career, which is
Of course,
why it's kind of harmless. Whereas, like, Conley is still pretty solid, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And skinny Jared Sullinger is another one. Yeah, it's a really interesting question. But because we are that destination, like you said, Jake, we might have our pick of the crop in the coming years. So it's going to be interesting to see what answers emerge to that question. We do have to wrap up here. People's commutes, if they're listening to this later, only go for so long. Two points to get to very quickly. The big man rotation. I think we could spend like a minute on this, Jake.
Yeah.
What did you think? What have you thought about the big man rotation so far?
There isn't really a big man rotation so far. It's like Vonleh played 2 minutes yesterday. Kabengele played garbage time. The Raptors don't play centers, so I'm wondering if that was part of why we didn't see a lot of big men yesterday. I would really like to see Kabengele play like the second unit big man minutes. We've seen Vonleh a little bit now. I want to see Jelly get a chance against Plumlee tomorrow. I would like to see, but we don't really have any answers on that outside of like they might not even play another big man. They might just do Tatum and Grant at the 4 and the 5.
Yeah, all I'll add to that is that Vonleh was maybe one of the more hopeful additions to the training camp roster. That hasn't really played out in any promising way yet and doesn't look to. Particularly the trouble we had securing rebounds on either end when Vonleh was the primary big man on the court. But can he be like a 4th-string big? Yes, right? And would we rather have Kevin Jelly over him in that role? Maybe. I mean, fortunately, we've still got a lot of runway on Kevin Jelly's 2-way contract before we need to decide whether to convert him, what we're going to do with Vonleh, etc. Finally, before we wrap up, thank you, I was a Celtics fan. Very much appreciate
Thanks, mate.
Thank you,
Strongly
everyone in
agree.
the chat. Very, very quickly, how long until we start firing up the trade machine for Gallo trades? Because it's pretty set without him.
I'm guessing the first loss of the season is when we'll do that.
And
That's my guess.
let me just throw some names out. And these contracts only roughly match the sort of Gallinari range, so there would need to be some additions and subtractions around the edges here. Zach Collins on the Spurs. Spurs are a tanking team, very much aligning their season agenda with Wemby, which is very smart and very typical of the Spurs. Zach Collins is in an advanced-ish stage of his career, has had some injury troubles and would be suited to a limited role. And, big men are probably still a shortage that we've just talked about on this team. Having someone with relative competence at that position, Zach Collins, might be attainable there. Chris Duarte on the Pacers, another tanking team. Duarte, I think he's only going into his 2nd year, but he was a 4-year college guy. He's a little bit older, and I believe the Pacers, the name is escaping me, but they drafted a pretty dynamic young small forward.
Yeah, Mathurin.
Yeah, that's right. So Duarte could be attainable. Whether or not we have the assets that, are we willing to give up another first-round pick at this stage? Maybe, maybe not.
No.
From the Pacers, Goga Batadze, who is a pretty talented European center there who really, like, if you're a tanking team, like, whether or not you have Batadze on your team is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
So he might be available and certainly useful for the Celtics.
Yeah, he's definitely not a vibes guy. I think he tried to fight his coach. He tried to fight Korkmaz in Eurobasket. That's definitely toughness. I noticed Kem Birch didn't get into garbage time yesterday for the Raptors. Not adding any first round picks for like a $6 million contract, but maybe a second rounder or like a Peyton Pritchard if that's if we need a wing or a big man. But I'm sure we'll get like way too deep into the weeds in a month or so on or as we get closer to Gallinari becoming eligible for trade.
Cool. All right. Any other names? Yeah, Ken Birch, Wayne Spooney is putting up his hand there.
Yeah.
Any other names there, Jake, before we wrap this one up?
It's hard. It's hard without my giant list of Celtics targets from the off season in front of me here. But like depending on what we want, like another wing, like a Justin, someone that actually can play the back end of the bench rotation, like one of the Holiday brothers. All three of them would fit. I love Jock Landale. I've mentioned it on the podcast before. Big guy that can kind of do a bit of everything. Something like that.
Yeah, Jock Landale, that'd be nice. Nice Aussie edition, nice Aussie vibes
Yeah.
back there. And might give us an inroad via the Celtics PR team. Hey, Aussie Celtics podcast, there's our guy. Let's get him on the pod. One can only dream. Look, thanks for sticking with us. Bit of a long one here. The first official podcast under the new First to the Floor branding. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Support the show. Like and subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Find us on IG and TikTok at First to the Floor 18. We've already got some content up on those socials, and we're continuing to populate those feeds as the season progresses. And Twitter at First to the number 2, First to the Floor. We're going to fire up our playback stream for tomorrow's game against the Hornets as well. I think at least Jake and potentially Jackson are going to be on that one. We'll get to the link for that stream on all of our socials and Twitter and YouTube very, very soon. And it's going to be our first playback stream of the season, which is very exciting. Spoonie in the chat, who couldn't join us on this one. Jake, love your work, mates. Thanks again.
Thanks, mate.
All right, until next time, go Celtics. Peace.